Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at giant-sized mini comics, the Academy Edition. We've looked at some of my Academy editions before. Those are basically where I got tired of having all these comics with a few good pages in each one, certain anthologies. And so with a scissor and some glue, I cut them down. So this originally was a 4-issue miniseries published in 1986 from Eclipse Comics. I had them all, and there was a lot of crap in them. Some really great stuff, though, so I didn't want to get rid of them. So I basically I pared it all down into one issue. Most of the stuff from this issue, though, is from number 3. That's a pretty damn good issue. And as you can see, I used the cover from number 3. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. There was a lot of crap in all 4 issues. So, but, part of me kind of wants to see those issues again because, my tastes have changed a lot since probably the early 90s when I cut this down to size. So maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe I got rid of some shit I shouldn't have. Who knows? So getting back to the cover, this is this amazing artist. I've never heard of this guy. And it's so sad this guy didn't go on to do stuff. His name's Bill McKeown. And all I could find on the internet is that he got some work at Esquire, doing a few little comic strips for them. Maybe the reason why is that, like I said, most of this is number 3. Every issue of Giant Size Mini Comics had a different guest editor. Number 3's happened to be Jay Kennedy. And Jay Kennedy was the editor at Esquire at the time, cartoon editor. Yeah, I think he worked for Playboy at one point. But more importantly, Jay Kennedy is the guy who wrote the Underground Comic Price Guide back in like 82 or something. That thing was a Bible to me when I discovered that. I would just flip through that all the time. Before the internet, it was an invaluable resource book. It says in one of the little blurbs in here that Jay Kennedy at this time, the mid-80s, was planning on doing a mini comics price guide. And apparently he had collected thousands of mini comics and apparently it never happened, or obviously it never happened. And it's so sad to me because this whole mini comics thing in the 80s was so fascinating to me. I mean, I'd read about it in the Comics Journal. And I remember, like, at the end of high school, I was like, I want to make a fanzine. I want to make a comic, a mini comic. And finally, when I went to college, I met Chris Cajero Cilla, and he showed me how easy it was. I thought it was this arcane process that I could never figure it out. He's like, no, you draw some shit and you go to Kinko's, and you print up copies. You staple them together. So, I really like the mini comics just for the format. I still have a nice shelf of mini comics. Eventually, I'll show off them to you. Like I said, great cover. Parables from Uncle Ron's Back Porch. I glued the cover of number 2 on the inside front cover here by David Steinlecht. Really like that cover. Kind of reminds me of like Richard Sala or something. So we start off with Bill McKeown. And this is such a great comic. Like I said, I cannot believe this guy didn't go on to do some, important shit. It's not only is he a great cartoonist, but it's pretty damn funny. And we start off, we see Ronald Reagan. He's got to address the nation that night. And I think it's Caspar Weinberger. He gives him all these notes about what he's got to talk about, and mainly he's going to be talking about the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was popularly known as Star Wars, the defense system. And he depicts Reagan as just as dumb as he was. He's basically like, I can't really digest more than a couple pages. I hope there's no charts. Charts confuse me. And so they dumb it down for him. And I guess they didn't dumb it down enough because when he gets behind the mic, he's like, this is too complicated. I'm just going to do it my way. And just like some senile old man, he starts talking about SDI. But then he just like says, I could probably tell you this about this best in a story. Just like some senile old man, he totally loses the thread and just starts telling this random story that really has nothing to do with SDI. It's not like some good parable or anything. So here we see it. Uncle Screwy builds a soapbox racer. And just look at this great cartooning. I love his style. So I guess this poor kid Johnny, his parents are away or something, and his Uncle Screwy is in charge of him. And he's really crazy. He destroys his school project just for kicks. And then he basically says, we're going to do the soapbox derby this year. And Johnny doesn't want to, but he just browbeats him into it. He says, I'm in charge of you, so you got to. Look at the craft in here. Like, here's a newspaper article about the soapbox derby. Here's a photo. It looks like a mean John Candy right there. This is Mel Gunderbutt and his son Dwight. We'll see them later. Look at the craft in here. All the tools on the wall. This guy's good. So Uncle Screwy calls up his buddy who's like a top-notch engineer. And he totally makes this intricate blueprint. He's going to make this amazing racer for him. And that kid Dwight is outside, though, spying on him. He runs back to his dad's house. He tells him that Johnny's building a racer. And his dad says, well, just let him try. This is kind of funny because I was in Cub Scouts and Webelos, and we had like soapbox derbies. And almost every one was made by the dads. You could tell. These things were way more advanced than any 10-year-old could ever make. It was pretty much a given that, yeah, the fathers are going to build these for the kids. That night, Uncle Screwy has a dream. This is a nice little dream sequence where him and all these other racers are flying through the sky. And that Gunderbutt fellow is fucking with Uncle Screwy. And then he launches a missile at him. Johnny comes in and wakes up Uncle Screwy. This poor kid, man. I feel so sorry for Johnny. It gets worse, too. So he sends Johnny down to this, like, tech place. And with almost like a shopping list. And he's getting all this fancy, crazy, intricate technology. He takes it home, and when he gets home, there's a security guard there who won't let him on. And they're building a fence around the property. And there's this guard dog biting Johnny's foot. Uncle Screwy tells Johnny that that Gunderbutt kid, Dwight, was in the yard spying again. So I have to up the security. Man, so good. I love this guy. So he says, oh yeah, this guy's going to build our fence, but you have to be his caddy at the golf course all summer. And then we see this montage of poor Johnny while his uncle and his friend are building this crazy racer. He's got a caddy in the rain for this fucker. Also, he's a newspaper boy, and all of his money has to go back to Uncle Screwy to pay for the racer. That's a great panel, too. Poor Johnny. So the racer is finished. It's so nuts. Such a funny design. So it's the day of the big race. Gunderbutt is threatening Uncle Screwy, and his son Dwight is threatening Johnny. He calls him a chicken-chested piece of queerbait. So the race starts, and when the guys are running to jump in their cars, Dwight spits some tobacco juice on the ground right in front of Johnny, and Johnny slips and falls. The whole crowd laughs at him. Even though they're adults, a lot of adults, they're just laughing at him cruelly. Man, Johnny is just fucked every 6 ways to Sunday. So Uncle Screwy gives him a pep talk. He says, you can win, nephew. He jumps in his racer, and he overtakes Dwight. Dwight tries to run him off the road here. And Johnny presses this button that just says kill on it. And his racer takes off like a rocket, tearing through all of these other racers, destroying them. And we see the headline the next day, Soapbox Hell, Scores of Mangled Kitties. And then we see Ronald Reagan as the narrator, ending the story. And you could tell he's totally forgotten about SDI, what he started the speech about. Funny stuff. This guy, Ron Haug, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Hauge. He was in National Lampoon in the 80s. I remember this guy, and I really liked his cartooning. And we got 2 one-pagers. This one has 2 gags on it. Just having fun with maps. Not that great. I kind of like this one, though. Popular science projects. Making fun of those school science projects that kids would make. You know, most of them are pretty lame. I like how this father kind of forced his son to do a science project about aluminum siding, which is really just an advertisement for the dad's business. This burnout kid just brought in a crankshaft and made a crappy sign. Good stuff. Next we got J.D. King. I'm sorry. I always mix those two up. J.R. Williams. Back when he was Jim R. Williams. And this is called Terror at the Cinema. This is one of his like little nostalgic comics, you know, about what it's like being a kid. We saw some of those in some other anthologies. It's not that funny, but it's kind of entertaining. Just talking about how theaters have changed because of the VCR revolution. Talking about all the things about movie theaters that are weird, like the sticky floors and the weird ushers who would work there. They always seem to be kind of weirdos. I just love his funny style of cartooning, though. Man, I love this splash page. Dangerous Fun by David Steinlecht. He's the guy who did that inside front cover. So it's almost like we see this crazy action scene, and it's like this, hard-boiled pulp narration. I had terminated 50 of the enemy before 3 lucky shots put me out of the picture. I was finished, and I knew it. Great logo. It turns out it's just this guy playing a video game called Spy Killer. That was his imagination. I like how he punches the machine in frustration, and the screen says, "Don't do that, or else." So he leaves the arcade and is heading home. And his comic is basically just, 2.5 pages of this guy walking in the city and just thinking. He seems like a little slightly neurotic guy. He's wondering if people might be muggers. He wonders if the people he sees think he's a mugger, and thinks about what he would do if he actually got mugged. He's just worrying about how he'd be helpless. So that's about it. But I definitely like his cartooning style, and he's a good writer. So even reading this guy's thoughts for almost 3 pages, it's kind of entertaining. It's pretty good. Here we have Steve Willis. We've seen Steve Willis before on this channel. The creator of Morty the Dog. This guy has probably literally made over 1,000 pages of comics in his life. He's ever since the 80s. He's been cranking out mini comics. God, even in the late 70s even, maybe. But he's been cranking out mini comics, cranking out real comics. This guy just won't quit. I don't know if he's still drawing, but I would be surprised. I like this one. It's just a really fun little goofy surreal piece. It's called Omnia Mutantor. And we see these 4 guys. They start morphing together, coalescing. And then their head turns into this giant dog and starts walking. And then there's another giant dog with the weird 4 guys as legs. And then we realize that they're basically just the feet of this poor guy who seems to have no control over where these dogs are going. And they're zipping along here. Just really goofy and silly. I kind of like it, though. This guy's named Kenny B. I don't know if it's pronounced Bay. It's called Worst Case Scenarios Presents. The first one is called The Generation Gaps, and the second one is called Urban Romance. This first one is just kind of like about this guy his family always gets him birthday presents that he doesn't want, basically. It's kind of cute, but not that great. I do like his style though. It's that ugly art style that was very popular in the 80s, you know, like Linda Barry, Mark Merrick from National Lampoon, who I have a feeling they were all inspired by Gary Panter, where they're like, we could be as scratchy and expressive as we want. I kind of like this one, the second one. We see this guy, he's like on 42nd Street, and there's all these porn theaters. He sees a sign for live love acts on stage. And he goes inside, and the show is basically this loving couple getting home from work. The husband made dinner for the wife. They're complimenting each other. The husband's vacuuming. And then they go to, he put fancy chocolates on her bed. They have separate beds. And then we see this cop with a flashlight. Pack it up, perverts. We're going on a trip downtown. This woman, Teresa Henry, who did these next two strips, she's a Canadian. Never saw her. I haven't seen any of these artists. Well, most of them. And they're all really good. She's got a really good cartoony style. I really like it. Kind of reminds me of Mimi Pond a lot from National Lampoon. And some English cartoonists who I can't recall their names. So these are called Fashion Fun. And these are kind of cute. They're not that great. It's kind of weird because mini comics, there's no money in mini comics. So basically, people like to do them because you could do anything you wanted. You could just vomit out the weirdest thing from your psyche onto, 8 pages, staple it up, and put it out there. But this is so like mainstream. Like this could be a Sunday comic strip in the paper. Not that it's that bad. It's kind of fun to read. It's like just kind of stuff about fashion and what women have to go through. But yeah, very. It could be in a newspaper. We got another Steve Willis strip, The Maze, and this features Morty the dog. So Morty the dog is in this maze, and he's with these like 3 nattering nabobs. He's just kind of doofuses. And this monster is chasing them. So they're on the run. One of the guys, Morty says, I'm going this way. You guys can follow me if you want. I don't really care. One of them, though, stands at this crossroads. And it's just like, what dictates my choice? Free will, chance? He's philosophizing about what path he should take. And he's like, let me stop and consider the consequences of each option, one by one. And of course, the monster catches up to him because he's dicking around, navel gazing to, basically being a philosopher. So they keep running. And then they get to this room. Morty seems to know these guys. And Morty tells them that these are guys who disguise their fear in smug morality. They're too afraid to move on. One of these weird guys says, we live in perfect happiness. Our sacred book instructs us to go no further, to sit on our butts in bliss. And as if you didn't get the analogy that this is obviously the pitfalls of religion, there's a cross on the book. And then he tells the 2 guys remaining, he says, look through the mortoscope and see the pathetic specimens as they really are. And there are 3 crying babies. I never could talk to girls. The complexity of this maze confuses me. I don't know how to dance. So basically, this is like guys who weren't that happy in life, so they retreated to religion. They're basically stagnating. So Morty's just like, get out of my way, guys. I gotta run from this monster. You can stay here as long as you want and wait for the monster to eat you. One of Morty's traveling companions, though, he falls for it. And he plants himself in one of those boxes. They're almost like plants. And of course, as soon as Morty leaves the room, the monster attacks them and kills them all. Their sacred book didn't protect them. So now, like, years pass. This whole time, every day, they're running from this monster. And the last guy left is just like, is this all there is to life? Just running? Every part of me hurts. We're reduced to mere beasts. I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to turn around and surrender. And Morty says, have it your way, wimp. So I guess this kind of represents just, I guess people commit suicide. Some people just can't face the complexities of life. And of course, the monster chomps at him. So Morty runs into this little room, and death is there. This crappily drawn skull and crossbones represents death. Morty says, no thanks. For some reason, the monster doesn't look so bad now. And Death says, well, sooner or later, we'll meet again. Maybe sooner than you think. And he goes back, and the monster's coming right at him. And he sees this thing. In case of emergency, break the glass. And he does. It's kind of a cool panel. Almost like abstract. And there's a saxophone inside. And so he starts playing it. And it keeps the monster at bay. And it says, as long as Morty maintained the music, the monster was kept at bay. And the skull was kept waiting. But how long could this go on? Morty thinks to himself, forever. So it's like kind of interesting how this goofy Morty the Dog comic is this total philosophical treatise on life. And he even ends it with a quote from John Milton. This is from Paradise Lost. Others apart sat on a hill retired, in thoughts more elevate, and reasoned high of providence, foreknowledge, will and fate, fixed fate, free will, foreknowledge, absolute, and found no end in wandering mazes lost. So I bet Steve Willis must have read this and been inspired to draw this comic. Pretty interesting stuff. And here we have a comic by Ted Bowman. Never saw this guy again. I think he just did lots of mini comics. This is called How We Traveled from Planet Plumpet to Planet Earth. And I gotta say, this guy draws so cute. And I hope he went on to draw kids' books, because this is really adorable. And we see this alien planet. These two aliens are flicking peas at each other with a spoon. One of them gets an idea. He imagines a giant spoon and a giant pea. So he goes to the king, and he proposes the idea. The king goes along with it. They grow these giant peas, they hollow them out and turn them into ships. And they build a giant spoon, and they flick the peas. And they fly all the way to planet Earth. They land right on the White House lawn. We see this like mean-looking Ronald Reagan. I love that caricature. Crazy pompadour and everything. He calls in the military. They surround the spacecraft. And when the two guys come out, they have a sign that says, don't shoot. We come in peas. I know it's so dumb, but I can't help but being charmed by this strip. It's so cute that I don't care about how grown-worthy the joke is. This is the way they're smiling there. Very cute. Okay, that's it, guys. Giant-sized mini comics, the Academy Edition. Hope you enjoyed looking at it. There's definitely a lot of artists in here I bet you've never seen, because I never did, and never saw again. It's kind of a shame. Some of these guys are really good, especially this Bill McKieran guy. So that's it for today's video, and hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.